What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Lakers Outsiders podcast / stream. I need to come up with a name. Streamcast, something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll have to figure it out because I feel like podcast / stream just it's not official enough. But I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm Gary Kester. We're here with you as always, hosting as always, and joined as always by my very handsome, my very polite, generous friend, Honi Ahmadian. Honi, how's it going, man?
A whole lot better now. I don't know what was up with that. Yes, that's right. I am very handsome, polite, and generous, I guess.
That's all I could think of off the spot. I mean, you know, we're still college rivals, so I couldn't be like too giving in my praise for you, but hey, I did what I could, and it's Friday at the time that we're recording this, so you know we're probably both in a better mood than normal. Even though I think both of us almost fell asleep before we recorded this because we simultaneously agreed that we were in a food coma. So I'm glad we stayed awake for this, though.
Yeah, me too. This podcast might have gone off the rails if I did succeed in putting my headphones into the memory card reader on my laptop, as I actually tried to do before we started this. It's been a long week, so I'm really happy to be doing this and hopefully not falling asleep on it.
Give it 5 minutes. We'll find another way for this thing to go off the rails. So it's what we do, baby. All right.
There's guaranteed Kelly Oubre talk on this podcast, so you know it's going off the rails.
Yes, it is. Honi loves him some Kelly Oubre. That is for damn sure. He also loves him some Wesley Matthews, and we'll get to talking about one of Wesley Matthews' old teams in this podcast. We're going to be talking about the Lakers' bounce-back win over the Milwaukee Bucks, and we're going to be looking ahead to Saturday's matchup against the Chicago Bulls, the second and final matchup for the Lakers against the young and energetic, fast Chicago Bulls. That'll be an interesting matchup, but we'll get to that later. We're also going to play round 2 of which opposing role player will go off against the Lakers. We did not do it for the Milwaukee game. It turns out we didn't need to because none of the role players really went off. So that was good. That kind of helped the Lakers. And it was a nice change of pace because role players love playing the Lakers. So,
well, I wouldn't say that none of the role players went off. I think Giannis had like almost 30 points.
Yeah, but he had a bunch of turnovers, so it doesn't count. I mean, to be fair, Giannis was the 4th best player on the court besides LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So,
all right, that's disrespectful to Drew Holiday, I think.
True, and Alex Caruso. But, all right, before we get to the Milwaukee game, we need to rewind a little bit back to the Golden State Warriors game. 2 things on this. One, I want to apologize. I think Honi and I probably both need to apologize. Our confidence level going into that game was probably way too high, and it jinxed the Lakers. We put some bad voodoo, bad energy on them. Although we did say, to be fair, that if the Lakers cared, they would win the game. And it was obvious that they did not care.
Yeah, clearly, just like every other loss this season, the only reason that it happened was because they didn't care. We're still 100% correct, and like we mentioned, we were both correct on which role players were going to go off against the Lakers.
That is the second thing. For those of you that are in the chat, if you watch this on YouTube, which, by the way, forgot to plug this, but we're doing these live, as always, on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch, twitch.tv/Lakers Outsiders. So if you ever want to watch us live, you want to come see Honi's beautiful face and then my face, you can watch us live on those 3 platforms, and of course these will be up on any podcast platform that you can listen to after the fact, whether it's Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we're now up on Pandora. So if you listen to your podcast on Pandora, or you want to take a break from listening to your music, just search I believe you can just search Lakers and we pop up, but search Lakers Outsiders on Pandora and we'll be up there as well. So even more resources for you to listen to Honi's beautiful voice, and then me just kind of hop on his back and tag along. So
I'm so uncomfortable with all this.
My plan is working. I'm trying to make Honi so uncomfortable that he demands a trade.
Oh man, yeah, I'm demanding a trade to Silver Screen and Roll.
Oh, I thought you were just going to go to Nets Outsiders, but hey. All right, so back to this Warriors game. Now that I've got that plugged out of the way, I told you, give it 5 minutes, we'll be off the rails. But we need everybody in the chat or the comments or whatever to decide the winner of this first round of. I need like an official name for this segment, but which opposing role player will kill the Lakers? And we had two very good picks. And the reason why we're asking people, because this was actually very, very close. Honi in the Golden State game said Kelly Oubre would crush the Lakers, would be that guy. To be fair, there was probably about a handful of them in that game. But I said Eric Pascal would be the guy. And they both went off. So we both kind of win, but we need you guys in the chat or comments or if you're leaving a review, wherever. We need you guys to decide this because I'm going to read their stat lines. Kelly Oubre had 23 points on 9 of 18 shooting. He was 2 of 8 from the three-point line. He was a +5 with 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 37 minutes. I'm going to throw that out there. Totally unbiased to my player who played 19 minutes, half the minutes, had 19 points, 8 of 11 shooting.
This is not fair.
He was 0 of 1 from the three-point line, and he was only +1. So you can't trust plus or minus in this instance because it does not support my argument. 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He had 1 steal. He had 0 turnovers, which I guess Kelly Oubre had 0 turnovers too, but that doesn't count. He had 1 personal foul, and Kelly Oubre had 2 personal fouls, so that does count. So
you forgot to read one column on the box score. Under beautiful eyes, it says Kelly Oubre 2 and Eric Pascal 0.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair. Okay, so I told you, this is closer than people think. So you got 23 points in 37 minutes on 9 of 18 shooting and 4 rebounds, and you have 19 points on 8 of 11 shooting, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 19 minutes, and 2 less beautiful eyes. So I'm going to need to, throughout this episode, I need you guys to comment in the chat or whatever. You got to pick a winner because we can't both win. We're both right, but we can't both win. So let me know in the chat. And we also apologize for that game. We obviously jinxed the Lakers by being overly confident and trusting them to care about playing basketball, apparently, on that given night. But it happens, I guess. So the Lakers are still undefeated, though, when they care about the games that they're playing. And it's going to stay that way for the rest of the season. If they get beat in the playoffs, they obviously just didn't care enough. So let's move on to a game that they did care about, apparently. And they won 113-106 over the Milwaukee Bucks. Kind of a slow first half for the team. Really started to pick it up kind of late in the second quarter. Went on a nice little run, carried it into the second half. And it was a little back and forth kind of at the end there. The Lakers hit some clutch threes. Alex Caruso had a big 3. KCP was fantastic. LeBron had a big dagger 3 and a pretty sweet dagger dunk as well. Honi, those 2 games just kind of exemplify like what this team is, right? Like when they don't care, clearly they could probably lose to just about anybody. And not saying that Golden State's like a bad team or anything. I think that they're a decent team. And they've got obviously one of the best players in the league. But then, you know, the Lakers, the effort just sucked in that game, flat out.
Yeah.
Kind of got out to a big lead and just coasted. Lost the game. But we see them against the Bucks, kind of take it a little more seriously and stay undefeated on the road and get a big win over, you know, a team that is considered one of the favorites out east.
Yeah, and I think this was a game that showed the Lakers, even when they don't necessarily play at their best, because I don't think that they played at their best against the Bucks by any means. They're still arguably the best team in the league because they have that much talent. So when they put in enough effort, it really masks a lot of whatever issues they might be having on that night. So, last night against the Bucks, it was Anthony Davis didn't have his best day. I don't think, especially offensively, he wasn't super efficient. Defensively, early on, I thought he wasn't great. There was one play where he got beat down the floor by Brook Lopez, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a loss because of that one play. And there were, a few other issues, like Dennis Schroeder wasn't at his best or whatever. The focus level, I think, is still not exactly at the peak that the Lakers reached last season. But like you said, it was very obvious early on that they cared about this game. And I think that's why it led to a pretty intense and like you said, back and forth game. Neither team really separated from the other one at any point until basically at the very end of the game. But yeah, it's like this team is so good, and the two superstars that they have, sometimes they don't even need both of them to have huge nights. Last night, it was LeBron having a huge bounce back game after having a really poor game against the Warriors, I thought, and being one of the major reasons I thought late in the game that they blew their lead against the Warriors. But he bounced back, had a massive game, hit 6 threes, and then they got, the contributions that they got from the other guys on a routine basis. Like you said, KCP was amazing. He had 7 of 10 threes. Caruso didn't necessarily score a lot, but I thought his defense was great. He had 3 steals, I think. Montrezl Harrell just doing a little bit of the dirty work and picking up, loose balls and rebounds at the rim and finishing them. They just get enough contributions from the other guys, and then the defense really picked up after that first quarter to really harass the Bucks, and especially Giannis in general. Talked a little bit about, he got his points and he got them fairly efficiently, but he also had, I believe, 9 turnovers, so only 3 assists. And the Bucks in general just had a lot of trouble getting good looks without, ISOing on a big or something like that. I think Drew Holiday probably had some of their best offensive stretches was just him dribbling and pulling up into jumpers against our bigs. So I think, yeah, it was a really good reminder of how good this team can be when they do put in that effort and their focus level gets up. And, they might not always play at their very, very best, regardless of that, but they can get enough contributions from people that sometimes it doesn't matter against a really good team.
Yeah, it just goes to show that their third best player on any given night could be any collection of guys, really. It could be by committee. It could just be a different guy almost every night. Sometimes it's going to be Dennis Schroeder. Sometimes it's going to be Montrezl Harrell. Sometimes it's going to be Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And obviously KCP was the guy. And I mean, you could argue he was their second best player in this game. But you're going to always get production out of AD. You're going to get production out of LeBron, even though they're going to have those games, like you said, LeBron against Golden State. They're going to have those games where they're not exactly at their peak, right? So KCP, though, man, this guy, it's still just so amazing to me to think back to the start of last season and how much he struggled. And now it's just his shooting this year. Like I'm going to read his shooting percentages this year. I don't know his true shooting percentage off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me, but I have his basic kind of shooting percentages. This year, he is shooting 54.8% overall from the field. That alone, as a 2 guard, is ridiculous. His 3-point percentage on 4.3 attempts per game. So not like a crazy high volume, but consider, pretty noteworthy volume. 56.9%. Klay Thompson is jealous of... No, that is not nice. Klay Thompson, I think, is jealous of that 3-point percent. And he's also shooting 93% from the free throw line. So basically, the moral of the story is let KCP shoot roughly 69 times a game.
Yes, once again, nice. I'm all for it. This is, again, where all of our bits on this podcast just come off the fly. We never plan any of these. There was a good stat going around. I'm going to see. We won't spend too much time on it, but a little bit of trivia. KCP is 8th all time in made threes for the Lakers in franchise history, which is hilarious in its own right. I just want to see how many of the top 7 you can name in like a minute without wasting too much time.
Kobe.
Number 1.
Oh boy, this is brutal. Robert Ory, maybe.
No, not Ori.
No. Michael Cooper.
Michael Cooper is who KCP just passed, so he's 9th.
Oh damn! Holy crap! This is brutal. I'm trying to think here. I mean, Jody Meeks had like 900 threes in that game against Oklahoma City, so he's got to be up there.
No, but one player from that era is, and
Oh,
it's really funny.
please don't tell me it's not Nick Young.
It is Nick Young. He's 7th. He's just above KCP.
All right, KCP's got to pass him. I can't. We can't stand for that. Man, Derek Fisher.
He's number 2.
Okay, so that's what, 3 out of
Yeah,
7.
you got 3 of them.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
There's 4 more.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think.
they're all recognizable good players. Yeah, so.
Well, we know it's not Shaq. 3-point shots. Yeah, I'm thinking of like some wing guys. I was thinking like, but I don't see picture any of them off the top of my head as like high volume. Like I'm thinking like Rick Fox.
Rick Fox is number 6.
Oh, okay. Man.
One of them hated 3-pointers.
Hated 3-pointers.
But is one of the best 3-pointers in Lakers history. 3-point shooters in Lakers history.
I'm drawing a blank.
He also has a connection to Nick Young in a way.
Is it Pau Gasol?
Uh,
Also has a connection to Nick Young. God, Pau Gasol was a terrible guess. I just think of that clip of him doing the Swaggy P celebration. I don't know. You're gonna have to hit me with the rest.
He has one more hint just for the jokes. He also has a connection to Rick Fox's last name.
Fox is the last name.
It's Byron Scott in the Foxhole.
Oh,
he's number 4. Nick Van Exel is number 3, and Eddie Jones is number 5.
Yeah, I should have thought of those two. Crazy. Oh, that's wild, man. Lakers have not had a ton of. Well, it's like that. What's that joke that everybody says? Like you put on a Laker jersey and all of a sudden your 3-point percentage drops by like 5%.
Yeah. Kobe has like almost 1,000 more than Derek Fisher, and Derek Fisher is 2nd. Also, my favorite thing about this list is the last thing on this. Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, is number 10 all time with 420.
Damn. Crazy. So crazy. Hey, shout out to KCP, man. Lakers Twitter bullied him into becoming like the best 3-point shooter in NBA history. That's pretty wild. I love it, man. He's been just phenomenal, man. Ever since that slow start to last year, he's just, I mean, he's got to be, I don't know if they're even going to do it this year with, the pandemic and everything, but he's got to be in the 3-point contest this year, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the plan is because I know they're not supposed to be doing an all-star game, but I feel like they could do a 3-point contest.
Do it over Zoom.
Yeah, they did fucking horse. They can do a 3-point contest. Yeah. And also put Alex Caruso in there. We didn't talk about this. Alex Caruso, much lower volume, is shooting 57%, 57.1%. He's shooting better than KCP technically, percentage-wise.
That's the league's worst nightmare, is Alex Caruso becoming a sharpshooter.
It's nuts. It's to the point where I think he's automatic from the corners. Like every time he shoots from the corner, I'm like, yeah, let's go in. I did not feel that way about Alex Caruso before this year.
Yeah, I mean, in the playoffs last year, it was like, come on, you can do it. And now it's like, money. That's good. And like him and KCP both. I mean, more so KCP because he just does it at a higher volume. But
yeah,
and that was like one of the things that I was mildly concerned about was the 3-point shooting with this team. Is like, they got a lot of guys that can hit them, but maybe are going to have stretches where they don't. Hey, if you got a couple guys that consistently hit them at a high rate like that, that's going to just work wonders. And especially like LeBron has been unreal from the 3-point line this year.
Yeah.
And yeah, the 3-point shooting hasn't been an issue at all. So if they're able to shoot like this, like going into the playoffs and everything, when they're, locking it down defensively and just executing better offensively and just putting more effort out there, I don't know how you stop this team, because offensively they have so much talent, and if they're hitting from the perimeter, good luck.
Yeah. I also think KCP in particular, having the night that he had was really cool because it kind of exemplified this thing that the Lakers have done really since the bubble last year, where they are really, really good at adjusting on things that they mess up. Obviously, they've had this mantra of we don't want to lose 2 games in a row since last year. And I think last year they might have only done it during that one losing streak where they lost like 4 in a row, although they probably did lose in the bubble twice in a row before the playoffs started. But there was a moment against the Warriors late in the fourth quarter when the Lakers were blowing that lead where LeBron threw just a wicked pass to KCP in the corner. KCP pump fakes and then passes it off instead of taking the three, and they end up, I think, having a 24-second violation or a travel or something like that. And you can tell LeBron is just pissed and he's screaming at KCP to just shoot the ball because, dude, you're shooting 57% from three. You should shoot the ball if you have any amount of space. And then they come out against the Bucks and KCP's throwing up 10 threes in a game. That's honestly, that's where he should be at. Obviously, you don't want him to force shots if they're not there, but he is that good of a shooter that he should be taking 7, 8, 10 threes a game. And that's great offense for the Lakers. Like if they can generate those looks for KCP, that's a really, really good looks, really, really good offense. And the Bucks are a team that since last year have given up a lot of threes. That's kind of how their scheme works. So that's like a perfect matchup for a guy like KCP because he's just looking at empty space all around him and he's drilling everything. So I did love that little aspect of, look, it's like a little bit of an adjustment in the couple days that they had off of KCP now showing that confidence again that he's really been showing all year. Like, yeah, I'm open. I'm going to take this three.
Right, and it's somebody's going to get those shots on the Lakers. They have too much talent, they have too much scoring, they have too much playmaking for those shots not to be there. It's just a matter of who they're going to be for. Some nights it's going to be Wesley Matthews, it might be Alex Caruso, KCP. Those shots are going to be there. Guys just got to knock them down, and KCP is just at a point, and Caruso too, probably just to a lesser extent because, like we said, the volume. But if we're getting KCP 10 wide open threes a game, I'm extremely confident he's going to hit at least 4 of them. And that goes a long way because when you look at the box score of this game, like if you'd have told me going in that Milwaukee is going to shoot 50.6% overall from the field and they're only going to have one less shot attempt than the Lakers, I would have said that could be tough to overcome. But the Lakers were 19 of 37 from the 3-point line while the Bucks were 9 of 28. And that, I mean, the 3-point shot, man, that's just the thing. I feel like every time the Lakers play the Clippers, it always comes down to 3-point shooting. Can the Lakers force? We saw it in the first game. I think we saw it in games against the Clippers last year, where the Clippers will go on runs when they're able to hit a lot of threes. Right? They've got guys like Kawhi, Paul George especially loves regular season games, and can go on stretches where he hits a lot of threes. And, they got another guy that loves regular season games, Lou Williams, who does kind of the same thing. And so, like, in those games, usually when the Clippers go on runs, it's because they hit a lot of threes. And then when they stop hitting those threes, that's when the Lakers will go on runs of their own. And we saw that in the first game as well. Clippers come out on fire. They kind of cool off a little bit in the second quarter, and the Lakers come storming back. So the 3-point defense and the 3-point shooting goes a long way for not only just the Lakers but teams in general, because that's the direction that the league has gone. And even though the Lakers have beaten teams the last couple of years with a lot of size and strength in the middle, both I think offensively and defensively, in different ways. Obviously, last year with Dwight and JaVale, the attack was different than this year with AD and Marc Gasol and Markieff and Montrezl Harrell and all those guys. But Lakers can still shred you from the perimeter, and I think that's just that gives so much value to the offense, especially when you have guys like LeBron and AD that teams basically have to pick their poison at this point, right? Where it's, all right, we're going to try and clog the paint, because in the playoffs, we saw it from basically every team they played, where teams
Yeah.
were getting away with a lot of illegal defense because they're just
Yeah.
packing the paint and saying we're going to make the Lakers beat us from the perimeter. So if you're taking away LeBron and AD, now you're leaving guys like KCP wide open, and so you either have to pick. You want KCP, making it rain bread from the heavens above, or do you want to let LeBron and AD have a lot of space to operate and do their thing?
Yeah, it's we talked a lot last year, especially in the playoffs, of wow, the Lakers can beat you in a lot of different ways. They just added a new one. Now they're winning the 3-point battle games too. It never really felt like they had too many of these games last year where they were just outscoring opponents from three by whatever that was, like 30 points against the Bucks. They got smoked in the paint last night against the Bucks. They gave up like 50 points in the paint, especially early on. They were just could not stop them in the paint, but it didn't matter. And last year it was like, all right, we need to dominate in the paint because we're not going to be able to make as many threes as the opponent usually. And that was sort of the concern that a lot of people, including myself, had when they got matched up against the Rockets. We were like, well, the Rockets just take a crap ton of threes, and if they get hot, then it's a problem for the Lakers because they don't have that sort of shooting. Obviously, that didn't really ever happen. The Rockets had a few stretches where they got hot, but in general, the Lakers were able to battle that out because the Rockets are an unserious franchise. But this year now it's like, all right, we can still beat you in the paint because we got LeBron James, who cannot be stopped going to the rim, basically. We got Anthony Davis, who can either post up, play pick and rolls, or just play garbage man and pick up all the offensive rebounds. And we got Montrezl Harrell doing that. Plus, a guy like Shooter who can attack the rim and beat guys off the dribble. Or we can hit you with 3-pointers, or we can get you on fast breaks because our defense is that good that we're going to force a lot of turnovers. They got a lot of different ways to win games right now. And if they can maintain this sort of consistency, because it's not just KCP and Caruso that are knocking down threes. It's like you said, LeBron has been great. Kyle Kuzma has been shooting the lights out. And then there's guys that have struggled that you would expect to be better and who can get better, like Markieff Morris, Wesley Matthews, Marcus All. Those guys, I don't think their shooting percentages have been very good. Dennis Schroeder as well. Their shooting percentages haven't been very good, and you would expect them to be at least a little bit better than they are, even if you might expect KCP and Caruso's numbers to drop a little bit. That gives me a lot of hope that this 3-point shooting is going to be sort of a steady thing that they're going to be able to rely on all year.
It's like Rob Pelinka watched the playoffs and said, all right, I'm putting an end to this team's like putting 5 guys in the paint and just waiting for LeBron and AD to try and attack. He put an end to that quick. Like you're not going to be able to guard the Lakers like that this year. And quite frankly, I don't know how you guard the Lakers without just being individually talented in a number of different spots from a defensive standpoint. The Clippers to me right now on paper pose the biggest threat because they have really good defenders with guys like Kawhi and Paul George that are just elite defensive players and can cause problems in their one-on-one matchups. But man, I know the Nets are extremely talented, and I think the Nets still have some moves to make. I'm really curious to see how that game plays out here in a few weeks when those two teams finally meet. But I don't know, man. I just don't know how you defend this Lakers team when they're fully engaged and they care about just playing good basketball and they play at a high intensity like we're going to see in the playoffs. It's a coach's nightmare, I think, to game plan and to scheme defensively against this group because they're so talented, but they can beat you in so many ways. They can get inside the paint, going towards the basket. They can shoot the three. They've got some guys that can be, good mid-range scorers as well, and kind of are three-level scorers. So
yeah,
it's amazing, man. This team is so talented and can beat you in just a multitude of ways.
Yeah, and a big, huge part of it is how their stars are evolving too. Like, the game plan against LeBron, I guess his entire career has been to lay off of him. And that's what the Bucks were doing. They were going under every screen, and LeBron is just pulling up from three easy, and he's super confident in that shot right now, as he should be. And when it's going, then it's unstoppable because then you play up against him, and he's taking you off the dribble, and he's exploding at the rim. or kicking out to other shooters. And then the game plan on AD forever has been to just double team him because he's not comfortable passing the ball, but he's getting so much better at that. And, that started in the bubble last year. He got really pretty damn good at it in the playoffs. And it seems like he's continued to get even better to start this year for the most part, even though I think all of us and he himself would agree that he hasn't been at his best to start this year, especially consistently so. But you can see those little aspects of his game where he's getting double teamed and he's spinning away from it and finding the open guy in the corner. And the way the Lakers are shooting right now, man, like that's unstoppable. It's making it really hard to double team Anthony Davis. If he can find those guys, then what are you gonna do? You either have the choice of letting him go one-on-one against you, where he has a good chance of scoring over the top of you and or drawing a foul, or you double team him and he's passing it out to KCP and Caruso and Kyle Kuzma, who are just shooting lights out right now, and they're going to get 3 points on you. It's a really, really tough dilemma for basically every team.
Yeah, and with AD's playmaking, there were 2 plays that really stood out in the Milwaukee game, and one was much more of a simple play than the other one was, but he had one where he very easily could have taken a kind of a 3 from the wing, but he had KCP standing alone right next to him in the corner. Makes that extra pass. I know it's something that's very simple, but for a guy like AD who has struggled with his vision and his playmaking, his passing, all that stuff in years past, I mean, just something little like that shows a little bit of growth as well, and the awareness, right? Like, hey, this guy's our best 3-point shooter. Instead of me taking this, even though I'm the superstar, I'm going to dish it over to him, and then KCP knocks it down. But then the Caruso 3 near the end of the game that was really big that put the Lakers up 7. AD draws the double team, and that was a really good read. Like it wasn't just a basic read like he's one pass away, here you go, simple pass. Like that was he had to scan the floor, found the open guy in the corner who was a couple passes away, delivered the ball on target. Alex Caruso knocks it down, and really I think that was the 3 that gave them enough points to win the game. I think I put them up 108-101, and Milwaukee finished with 106. But that play was a dagger, and I think Milwaukee would have said, hey, we're going to have to live with that, because in years past that's not been a strength of his game is playmaking. We got the ball out of his hands and made somebody else beat us. And if guys continue to make shots, I think it makes it a lot easier for a guy like Anthony Davis to be a more willing passer and trust your teammates, because you have confidence that they're going to make those shots. So this is.
I think Caruso's gotten really good at the relocate on those possessions too, especially when AD has the ball. I've noticed that a couple of times this year where AD gets double teams and he's spinning away from it, and AC knows like exactly the timing and the positioning of moving to get himself an angle where AD can pass him that ball and he can get an open look. That's an underrated part of what's been working for both those guys right now.
Right. That synergy is getting better and better for a lot of duos really on this team. And even those guys that played on the team last year and this is their second year together or whatever, the synergy is just getting better and better. And man, I'm just so excited. I know we have several months to get through, but I'm just so excited to see this team basically get into playoff mode and play basketball at a high intensity level, because just from a consistent standpoint, because they're just so freaking good. When they want to be and they care, they're just so good. And it's just like there's times I just put my feet up and just like sit back and just enjoy the show, It's beautiful to watch. Yeah. It's good times as a Laker fan. So they're going to have those frustrating losses where, the effort sucks, like we saw against Golden State. But, man, they're going to have games where we just sit back and realize how damn good this team is. So, like we said at the start of this thing, the last 2 games are kind of a perfect example of what this team is when they don't care, and there's going to be games like it. You see the result. But when they're engaged, they come out and show that in our eyes, and probably a lot of people's eyes, they are the best team in the league.
Yeah.
And,
yeah,
hopefully team just continues to improve, get better. Obviously, the chemistry is really good between coaches and players, too. I don't know if you guys saw the clip of Anthony Davis complimenting Frank Vogel on his looks today, where Lakers, Twitter, just Lakers, the Lakers community, we are hyping each other up right now. This is a time, I hyped up Hani's looks probably a few times on this podcast. I'm expecting a check in the mail, but Anthony Davis did it to Frank Vogel. So, I mean, it's just, we're in the giving spirit right now.
Yeah. Look, the vibes right now, the vibes are good. In Lakers, in the Lakers organization and in Lakers fandom, the vibes are just, just incredible right now. That's all I can say.
Chef's kiss. Beautiful. All right, so that's it for the Milwaukee game. Great win for the Lakers. I guess one last thing I want to say about that game is, remember when the Lakers lost at Milwaukee last year and NBA Twitter had a field day with it? Yeah. Keep that same energy. That's all I'm saying. Lakers go to Milwaukee. I know there's no fans or whatever, but I'm just, hey, keep that same energy. So,
while we're on this, certain person on NBA Twitter very much proclaimed and then deleted that they thought Anthony Davis would get played off the court against the Houston Rockets in the playoffs.
Did that ever happen?
Continue.
Wait.
As far as I remember, not quite. Not really.
I'm trying to think what happened after that series. Did the Rockets go into a full rebuild mode because the Lakers broke them and made their star player want to go play basketball in a completely different city? And did the Lakers also win the championship behind Anthony Davis and his contributions, and he's still like on a 5-year deal with the Lakers?
Look, that's all fair. That's all good and fair, but you're forgetting about the part where the Rockets got an extra win because they forced the Lakers to go small to beat them. That actually counted as an extra win in the NBA official NBA record.
Never forget, it went from the Lakers won't win this series and transitioned to, well, they're only winning because reason X. So
they're only winning because they play our style better than we do.
Hey, the Rockets didn't play Anthony Davis off the floor, but they played him into a 5-year max deal with the Lakers. So congrats to you, Houston. Enjoy your rebuild. Enjoy those mock drafts. All right. Chicago Bulls are up next for the Lakers. It'll be the second and final matchup for the Bulls. The first game was a little surprising. It kind of, I guess, it's another example of the Lakers when, they don't play at 100% intensity. They can lose to pretty much anybody, which they did not. They did not lose to the Bulls. It was a close game. They almost did. 117-115 a couple weeks ago. What are we expecting in this game? Zach LaVine went crazy in that first game. He had 38 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. But the Lakers did enough to dig deep and get a win. This Bulls team can be problematic because they are very young. They play fast. They play at a high pace, energetic, young legs, all that stuff against a Lakers team that isn't really in that mode and probably isn't going to be in that mode for quite some time. So are we expecting kind of a similar thing, or do we think the Lakers maybe learned a lesson last time, flirting with disaster, and come out a little more focused in this game?
So I'm a little bit optimistic that it won't be quite as much of a nerve-wracking game as the other one was, partially because the Bulls are coming off a back-to-back. They just played the Hornets tonight. Got to win. The Bulls are definitely not the same Chicago Bulls as last year. Their roster isn't very different, really. It's basically the same core of players coming back. But Billy Donovan over Jim Boylan turns out is a pretty big coaching upgrade. Who would have thought?
Weird.
So they're hovering right about 500. I would expect them to kind of be hovering around 500 all year. That seems to be about the level of this team. Zach LaVine right now is having an all-star level season. I've never been a big Zach LaVine guy, but I mean, credit where credit's due. He is having a great year offensively. And they have a lot of other weapons. Like you said, they got a lot of guys who can go off on any night. We saw that the other game against the Lakers. LaVine obviously had a great game, but Kobe White was also killing them. And they're tough. They play a lot of good team stuff. That same trip where they played the Lakers that close, they also played the Clippers really close. Almost got to win against them as well.
Yep.
So it's definitely not a team that you can take super lightly. I would expect the Lakers to be a little bit better, but again, that's kind of what we expected against the Warriors, and then they still walked through it most of the game and gave up a big lead because, again, they did not care enough. Hopefully that this is, however, a game that they can build off of this pretty big, like, sort of, I don't want to say a momentum win because it's not like they were struggling and needed a win to really get their season together, but it's a big win against the Bucks. It's one of those like statement wins, is maybe a better phrase for it. And I would love to see them kind of build off of it, and maybe get a big blowout win against the Bulls. But I can't really expect that, both because of the way the Lakers have played against worse competition and because of how tough the Bulls have been against good teams.
Yeah, with this Lakers team, you just never really know which effort level you're going to get. It almost feels like it's almost, I don't want to say all or nothing, but it kind of feels that way because even the nothing games, most of the times they'll at least crank it up for a quarter. They'll put on a big run and do what they have to do. But
yeah,
one thing, too, with the first Chicago game was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did not play in that game because he got, I think, the ankle injury against the Spurs the game before that. So that is kind of a big thing, although KCP has had games where he doesn't score a ton because he just doesn't get shot attempts or whatever. That is, you're missing one of your starters, and like we said, a guy that can be that third best player behind LeBron and AD. So that is a big loss. So hopefully, having him will help things kind of fall into place a little more naturally, and the team will come out and execute well offensively. They'll have more space to operate, stuff like that. So having him back will be very, very nice. But like you said, Honi, the Bulls have a lot of young guys that play hard, they play fast. They've got guys that can shoot. Obviously, as a North Carolina fan, I know what Kobe White's capable of. He was a one-and-done guy at North Carolina and one of the most impressive freshmen that I think I've seen. I guess not only just for North Carolina, but just in college basketball in general, because I did not expect him to be as good as he was then. I'm happy to see that he still has a lot of that shot-making ability at the NBA level and has transferred over. Hopefully, he takes the game off, though, and does not make a lot of shots, but he is very capable of that. Wendell Carter is having a pretty good year as well. And they've got, some of these other guys. They do have some experience on this team, some guys that have been around, Thaddeus Young, Garrett Temple. And even some of these young guys have been in the league for a few years now. So they're not a team to be taken lightly, even though they are kind of rebuilding. Like you said, Honi, the coaching is night and day from what we saw with them a year ago. And that plays a big difference. So this game, I'm expecting a competitive game. I'm not going to go and say the Lakers are going to lose this game, but I think that they're going to have to fight hard for this win because this is a Bulls team that doesn't really know any better. I think when you get that with younger teams, it feels like they either maybe they lack confidence if they lose enough games, or they just don't know any better. And that seemed to be the case with like the Lakers in like 2017. Right, whenever they'd go up against the Warriors, they wouldn't know any better. So they would usually play fairly well. I could see that with this Bulls team too. They compete, man. I'll give them a lot of credit. I don't know where they're going to finish this year record-wise, but they compete. They compete, and Zach LaVine, is a guy that can have his ups and downs, but his peaks are very very good. So. It'll be a really interesting game for sure, especially given that they're playing each other pretty close together, and not a large gap in between games that they saw each other. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Lakers win this game, but it's going to be closer than people want.
Yeah, that seems pretty fair to me.
All right, so that's our thoughts on Chicago. Hopefully the Lakers can get it done and keep their undefeated road record going. That would be pretty sweet if they somehow finish the season undefeated on the road. That would be amazing. But, I mean, hey, they're what, 8-0 now on the road? Although, according to the one site you quoted earlier, they were 40-0 on the road already, which is impressive.
Yeah, I was daydreaming at work. I'm like, I wonder what the best start to a NBA season on the road is. I typed that in on old StatMuse, and they're like, the Lakers are 40-0 on the road, which is really impressive considering they played 8 games on the road. And then I like scrolled down to see like the other teams, and all of them were weird. They're like, oh, they played 40 games on the road and they won 177 of them. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, so I will look into that to see what the actual best record on the road is.
I think it was LeBron's. Oh no, that was home. That was home games. I remember LeBron's Cavs. I think in like 09 had like 1 or 2 losses, and one of them was the Lakers.
Yeah,
but that was home. I don't know what road it is.
I was just thinking of the Spurs had a crazy year too, but I think that was also home games. I think they might have only lost 1.
Yeah, we don't acknowledge them anyways. So, yeah, all right. Last segment that we're gonna do is which opposing role player is going to light up the Lakers and have probably a career night, or at least a night that is far above their average night. Honi, I let you pick first last time. I'll do it again this time because it's Friday and I'm just being really nice today. I'm sure
you're generous one now.
I'm sure you have a Bulls role player, and you can't say Zach LaVine. That's the one player that's off limits. I know the Bulls are rebuilding and they don't have any like superstars, but LaVine is better than a role player, so you cannot say him. But anybody else is fair game.
All right, so last game I went with Kelly Oubre because he had been shooting 19% from 3, and I was like, he's gonna make...
We all know why you went with Oubre, and it has nothing to do with basketball.
Okay, that's fair. This time I'm going the opposite way on the basketball aspects. I am not calling this person ugly, but Otto Porter is kind of quietly having a pretty good year after like not playing for 16 years. It feels like. And he is averaging about 13 points a game, shooting 42% from 3. I could definitely see him going off both from 3, and I think he's a really good cutter, and the Lakers have not been especially great at containing cutters, especially since their rim protection hasn't been quite as good as last year as well. So I'm going with Otto Porter. I think he can have a 20-plus point night against these Lakers.
So, as a North Carolina fan, I have to say it's going to be Kobe White. I can't pick against my boy, one of my favorite Tar Heels ever. Mainly because, well, one, I'm extremely biased, but 2, when he is hitting shots, like he can make difficult shots, like contested shots, as the Lakers saw. I mean, he's going to go on stretches where he probably takes some bad shots and misses some bad shots, but Kobe White is a very good shot maker and can get red hot with his jump shot. And so I'm going to pick Kobe White just because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of his, but he also just has that ability, man. He has that ability that he can get red hot and he can go off for 30-plus points. He's had, I think, a couple of 30-point games already with the Bulls, and this is just the start of his second season. So he's definitely capable of that, and I would not be. That's the type of player that just seems to go off against the Lakers, like a guy that can hit shots. I was talking to Justin Russo the other day about Patty Mills and how Patty Mills just lights up the LA teams every time they play, which Patty Mills is a good player, but it just feels like whenever I watch him play against like the Jazz or something, like he's just not the same player that we see against like the Lakers. So I can see that a little bit of that effect with Kobe White, and to me, he's going to be that guy that probably has 20-plus points, that role player.
Upset of the century is you not picking Chandler Hutchison?
I think he's hurt right now. By the way, while we're on the subject, Honi, I do have a question for you. Who is number 1 in the Mountain West men's basketball standings right now?
Ooh, good question. I'm gonna have to go with the Wyoming Cowboys.
Let me just stretch a little bit here. Don't mind.
All right, we get it. You work out.
I'm just saying. I mean, we just had today's game postponed due to COVID, but Boise State only one loss this year, and it was I think they're number 7 right now to Houston. So resume is looking good, looking strong. So I'm just disappointed that
I've
the first,
zero.
the first like really good Boise State basketball team in a while, fans are not allowed to go watch them.
That's incredible.
Of course,
Uh,
of course.
The only reason you've only lost one game, first of all, is because you haven't played the Wolfpack yet. Second of all, I genuinely I have not watched any college basketball this year, so I don't even know how good Nevada's team is.
Yeah, man.
I know we played.
They're solid.
San Diego. We lost to San Diego State twice, but played them like I think it was like by 5 points total or something like that. So
pain.
Yeah, pain.
Can't lose San Diego State of all teams, but like that's
we never win.
When it comes to San Diego State, I think me and you are the Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers meme. We come together, we put aside our differences and come together to beat San Diego State.
I'm so tired of losing to those dudes. Even like the great Nevada teams of the last few years never won at San Diego State. Never. It was rough.
One day they'll be like bottom of the conference, and me and you will just we'll cheers to that, and we'll have victory cigars and everything. So.
I live here now, so next time maybe I'll go and watch them play.
You'll be the one Nevada fan just in the crowd, just woo. This is now Mountain West Outsiders. So, welcome to the college basketball portion of the show.
Did the stream numbers just go down by 90% while we were riffing on Mountain West basketball?
Somehow we now have negative viewers. Weird. All right, so Honi takes Otto Porter. I've got Kobe White. That means, since we were both right last time, that it's going to be somebody totally random, like, I don't know, off the top of my head. It'll probably be like Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young will just go off for like 28 points and all of a sudden just go absolutely crazy. Or it'll be Daniel Gafford, or I don't even know. It'll just be somebody, that's for sure. Because we're not going to have 2 games in a row where a role player doesn't just absolutely crush the Lakers. It's going to happen. So, yeah, that's all I got. Honi, you got anything else before we sign off?
No, not really. Just, the regular plugging of going and clicking on our things on the internet because they sustain us. There's a lot of good stuff on the site, and we're going to have more this weekend. So
our things, not just any things. Don't just be clicking any things on the internet.
Yeah, don't go click on it. The silver screen and roll doesn't need your clicks. The Lakers Nation doesn't need your clicks. We need your clicks. Give us your clicks.
No Celtics sites either. They don't need your clicks. I mean,
unless you're going to troll them, then that's okay. We'll allow it. If you're leaving comments, polite, but troll.
Yeah. What he said. Speaking of clicking things, one last plug. As always, guys, we do these live on twitch.tv/LakersOutsiders. And, of course, if you want to support the site and everybody that spends a lot of time, energy, and effort, basically in their free time to put out content and just do all this stuff, giving people content about the Lakers and everything. You can subscribe to us on Twitch. I believe it is $5.99 per month, so super cheap, and it goes directly towards making the site better, giving you guys more content, and rewarding those guys and girls that are putting together some great work and working really, really hard for it, like I said, in their free time. So if you want to support us, you can do that.
And if you want to give less than that, you can do that by subscribing to the Patreon as well. There's no, we don't have like, I don't remember what the word for it is, but we don't have tiers on the Patreon. You can give whatever amount that you would like monthly, and we would appreciate any amount.
Yeah, so anything helps. Anything helps. So if you want to support us, you can do that. You can also just follow us on Twitch. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can like and follow us on Facebook as well. Those are the 3 platforms. We'll be doing these live. And then after the fact, they'll be up on any podcast platform that you can think of. And like I said at the start, now up on Pandora as well. So if that's where you try to get some of your podcasts, you can find us there as well. And yeah, you can follow Honi on Twitter, just at HONIAHM. You can follow me at Gary Kester, or you can follow my personal Twitch account, just SwishGK, twitch.tv/SwishGK. If you're watching this, it should be up on the screen under the latest subscriber. I'll talk about Lakers basketball, Mountain West basketball, potatoes, football, whatever. You can join me, and I'll have some fun on that channel as well. So we're going to get out of here. I'm going to try and pod after the game on Saturday against the Bulls. Hopefully we'll be talking about another Lakers win. If not, you can come vent with us, and it'll be a good time either way. So let's get out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening and joining us in the chat. Didn't really have many questions, so we'll save that for another time. But with Honi Ahmadian, I am Gary Kester with the Lakers Outsiders, signing off.
Shout out to my handsome podcast host, Gary Kester.